Hey, welcome back to the podcast. I'm Hatchett, and in this episode, I'm going to be talking about the benefits of mindfulness in your sport. So if you're interested in how you can best look after your mind, then stay tuned for this episode because I'll be running through at least 5 ways in which mindfulness can benefit you as an athlete. So my own journey with meditation, mindfulness, in sport has been a bit of an interesting one. If any of you have heard my story before, many of you will know that I got into yoga through a broken body. It was recommended to me. I resisted it because I didn't want to become this spiritual guru, this hippie, monk-like figure. That wasn't me. I was an athlete in need of improving my body. But if any of you have done yoga and you know of it, then you will know that meditation follows it. Mainly because, and a bit of a lesson is that yoga was designed to improve, or yoga, the poses, the asanas, the stretches, if some of you want to call it, it was designed for us to sit in meditation better. So all the poses that you see that are pinned up on posters, they were ultimately designed for you to be able to sit better and then meditate. That is the goal of yoga as a whole, to be able to sit, meditate, and see your mind for how it is. So for me, I didn't really want to get into that to begin with. I wanted the stretches. I wanted to move and be physical. However, the more I got into it, the more I recognized that meditation just would come into it at some point, and then I would give it a go. And then I saw this glimpse of a benefit. And then, like everyone else, I would kind of forget to do it and I would leave it, or I would find it really hard to go back and do it again because of all the issues that of, first off, thinking about the amount of thoughts that were going through my mind, but also just being uncomfortable sitting doing it. There was too much noise outside. All the problems that come along with the initial start of mindfulness and meditation, they all crept in. They're very, very common issues, and I had them all. So I didn't really engage with it to begin with. But once I finished my career and I started to understand or see my mind for what it was, when I did my yoga teacher training, that was where meditation and mindfulness really clicked for me. There was this definite meditation or two that I was doing on my yoga teacher training retreat that it clicked. It really clicked, and I got it and I understood it for what it was, and then it became a part of what I do. And it's kind of, in my eyes, and I believe that once you've seen it and you've understood it and you've had a glimpse of it, you'll want it again, but also you'll never see your mind again the same. You've started to unlock a part of you that you didn't know you had, and then you're really going into it, and all of the benefits start to come out slowly. And it does take practice, because that's why it's called a mindfulness and meditation practice. So once you start to feel that glimpse of hope and that improvement, you'll start to understand why you can use it and how to use it. The key is just being able to continually go to it and finding a way of making it a habit. But that would be a podcast on its own. So really, I wanted to go through how mindfulness will improve your performance and how mindfulness will improve your life, your everyday life. So in performance, I've found huge benefit of it, just not only through the actual performing on the field, but actually the performance off the field. It has allowed me to understand where my mind is at for my performance, both before, during, and after performance. It has allowed me to understand my communication between teammates to other people, whether I'm either coaching someone, being coached by someone, or just having an interaction in general with my team, and allowing that communication to be better. And then also, it has allowed me to have a much better understanding of where my own health is, really. And I say that as a really broad scale. Sometimes as an athlete, you can get caught up in just training within the sport and just training for the sport, for the performance. And then I was able to actually look at compartmentalizing my sport and then being able to improve the moments when I was thinking about sport or performance in the wrong time, and then understanding my mind was there, and then I could switch off. I could make the choice to switch off. And that just had a better result in my overall performance and overall health as a person and as a human being and as an athlete as well. And really that has crept into what I would now talk about is mindfulness in your everyday life. All of those skill sets that I'm talking about of understanding where your body, your mind is at, and your communication, that just starts to shift into your life as well. You start to communicate with your family, your friends, your loved ones, your next door neighbor, your friend on the bus, anyone who you come into contact with. It starts to improve your interaction with the world. But not only that, it has the most profound effect with how you interact with yourself. So understanding yourself, understanding where you're at any one time, what are the things that are coming into your mind more often than not, where are your thoughts taking you, what emotions you're feeling. And this will lead us into all of the benefits of mindfulness for athletes. So really the first benefit I would give for mindfulness for athletes is that it allows you to be present. Now, why is being present so important? And not only that, what is it? Being present is literally living in the here and now, and it's not dwelling on anything that's happened in the past or considering anything that's going to happen in the future. You're purely living in the present. It teaches you the practice of doing that now. Mindfulness meditation will allow you to be more present by taking your focus onto whether it's a sensation, a feeling, your breath. It could be an object, something that you're looking at, and you're really engaging with in the present moment, taking away your thoughts from what's happened in the past and what's going to potentially happen in the future. Also allows you to look at yourself far more subjectively rather than feeling as if the thoughts are happening to you. You're allowed to see your mind, your thoughts for what they really are, and it allows you to have that non-judgmental look at what your thoughts are. And that's a really, really important part of allowing your performance to improve as an athlete, because the more you can be present, then the more you're actually engaged in the task at hand that you're doing. So for example, if you're a soccer player or a football player and you're taking a penalty in a penalty shootout, you can train yourself to be more present in the moment by taking away the idea of potentially what has happened in the past, what's going on outside of you, seeing where your mind is at, and also noting if your mind does become distracted by all of these different, stimuli around you that are trying to tear your attention away from the present moment, which would be your skill set, your cues, your performance cues that are going to allow you to kick that ball into the goal if you've trained it over and over again. Because more often than not, what will happen in athletes that get put under pressure is they get taken out of the present moment. They start to dwell on what could happen in the future, the fail or the success that could happen, and then they forget what they're doing right now, or they dwell on something that's happened in the past and again forget what to do in the present moment. So by practicing mindfulness, by practicing meditation and using mindfulness meditation as a way of bringing yourself to the present moment, the more and more you do it, the better your mind becomes at understanding when it is distracted from that present moment. So being present, a huge one for athletes, because the more present you can be in both your competition, your training and everyday life, the more you're going to be able to, execute what you're trying to do in that moment. From that, you also become more focused. So there is a huge need for people to become more focused in the world because we're forever being distracted. And again, that ability, that practice of being distracted and then refocusing is the goal of meditation. That is the good bit. I think a lot of people find that as the biggest frustration, is that when you get distracted and then you lose your attention, you lose where your focus is on, that's where people start to get frustrated. And in that moment, that's where you're starting to judge what's happened to yourself. And really the practice should be, okay, I've got distracted, that's fine. I'm going to bring my attention back to what it was. And that could be your breath, the object, the sensation that you're trying to use as your anchor. So re-anchoring yourself back to that. And the more you do that, I like to think of that as the bicep curls of the mind. So every time you lose your focus and you bring it back to focus, that's one repetition. And the more times you do that, the stronger your mind's going to become. So it's a real simple way of thinking about it, that the more you do this, the more you become distracted. It's actually okay. It's actually a good thing that you're starting to really build that strength to stay focused on task. Because the worst thing that could happen is that you become distracted and then you lose that focus and you haven't become aware of it, and then you never come back to that focus that you were on. So you can do that mixed with being present. That will allow you in things like clutch moments, pressure situations in a game to be super focused in on what you're doing. So again, mindfulness meditation, great for being present and gaining more focus. Your emotions. So it can really improve your understanding and gaining awareness of where your emotions are at. The more you start to understand the thoughts that are coming into your mind from an objective point of view, you start to understand how they're making you feel, the emotions you're starting to feel. And the more you're able to see your emotions than rather live through them, you can gain an awareness of what is maybe triggering your emotions and how best to deal with them. I think that the thing I've learned so much is not only the triggers for my emotions and when I potentially start to become, whether it's like angry, sad, overexcited, whatever it could be, I've then understood now when my mind has gone to one of those emotions. And that's a really valuable thing to have. So again, if you're an athlete and say something overstimulates you or you get overexcited, by practicing the awareness of knowing where your emotions are at, you can catch yourself getting carried away with something, and you can maybe you get to choose to bring yourself back down. Or on the flip side, if you become super anxious with something or you become super sad with something, again, you could maybe catch the trigger that has caused that, and you can also start to gain an awareness of when that emotion is arising, and then you can do something about it. But without that awareness, without that understanding of where your emotions are at, you're going to really struggle to bring them back, and you'll just run away with those emotions. So again, it really is about that awareness. It really is about that observation of the mind so that you can understand where your emotions are at any given time. And a less emotional athlete can make better logical decisions. And that is the ultimate goal that we're looking for here. I kind of touched on it. There was having this greater self-awareness. And with that greater self-awareness, I think the biggest one for me has been communication. And you'll see this in especially team sports, but even if you're in an individual sport, your communication is super, super important. So gaining that awareness of both your own mind and the way you go about and you interact with the world will allow you to better communicate with people and understand the effect that you can have on people with the positive and negative words that you say to them, the positive and negative interactions you have with them. So the more you gain that understanding of your own mind, you can either understand how you want to be communicated to and also how you communicate to others. So knowing when you're in the best place to do it, what will get you in the best place to communicate, and potentially what to do if you have lost the ability to look at a situation in a state of compassion and empathy with the other person, and you feel you're running away with your emotions and you're not communicating to the best of your ability. Again, it's all a self-awareness game, and again, a huge, huge benefit for athletes to get the most out of not only themselves, but the other people that are around them that are potentially there to help them out. The second to last one would be gratitude. So with gratitude, it can have a real easy, fluffy sound to this because it's used, I think it's almost overused at the moment. But gratitude for an athlete can be really powerful because understanding what you've either achieved, what it's taken for you to get where you've got, especially in moments when you feel things might not be going for you or against you. And it's super valuable to have an understanding of that gratitude in your life. So simple process, and I've spoken about this in previous podcasts, is negative visualization. Visualizing your life without something. So it could be your health, it could be an individual, it could be a certain object, but visualizing your life without that and where you would be, and then having that and that feeling of gratitude when you recognize that it is in your life. So for me, I'm hugely grateful for my physical body, my physical capabilities. Yes, it does hurt sometimes. Yes, I get injured sometimes, but I'm super grateful for what it can achieve and what I've done so far. And also the people that are in my life, my family, my friends, and what they allow me to be able to do and the support they give me. All those things put you in a much better frame of mind, a much more positive frame of mind, because as we know, the world of sport, it can leave you in a negative frame of mind a lot more than it leaves you in a positive frame of mind. So using something like gratitude practice in mindfulness allows you to stay in a much more positive frame of mind, even when you feel there's a lot of things to be negative about. So it's just being able to train your mind to see the positive in moments where there is perceived huge amounts of negativity. So super valuable to keep everything going in the right direction. And the last one, which is just self-observation. This is just from an overall sense of just observing your mind. That's really what mindfulness is about. It's just allowing you to understand where your mind is at any one time. So just taking that 10, 5, 1 minute of mindfulness practice just to take a look at where your mind is at. The analogy that I used for myself that seemed to work really well was either sitting at a bus stop, and every bus that would come along would be one of my thoughts, and I would literally welcome that bus as one of those thoughts to the bus station, see it, look at it, and then let it move on. I wasn't taking that bus. I was just literally going to sit at that bus stop and allow the bus to come and go. You could see it as traffic on the road, and all the cars are the thoughts. Sometimes there's loads of cars, sometimes there's none at all. I found myself sometimes feeling like I was in a boxing ring, and a bit like a WWE Raw Rumble. I was in the boxing ring, and a thought would come in, and I would be the one trying to punch it and throw it out, and I was wrestling with it. Whereas when I started to understand that I could just sit there, like I said, at the bus stop or the side of the road and just watch these thoughts go by, it allowed me just to observe what was going on. It really takes a lot of the emotion and the stress and the worry and the anxiety away from what those thoughts are creating, and it allows me to understand them for what they are. And then really the most important part is allowing me to then make a decision about it and potentially put in an action. Sometimes there's things that I cannot control, and I'm worrying about things that I cannot control. Sometimes there are things that I can actually control and do better. But with that observation, using that mindfulness practice, that meditation practice, it allows you to observe your mind and observe what is going on so that you can make better decisions ultimately moving forward. So how can you get started with your mindfulness practice? This was the real tough one for me. For me, I started movement, and I would really use mindfulness meditation at the end of, say, like a big yoga session, so a big stretch off, and my mind was calm, my body felt good and relaxed, and then I would just literally spend 1 minute trying to focus on my breath. 1 minute, that is it. Take a timer, set a 1 minute timer, and try and stay focused on the feeling of the breath coming in and out of the nose. That is it. Just start there. Then you can either up the timer up to 2 minutes, 3 minutes, maybe up to 5, 10, 15 minutes. If that doesn't work for you, you can go into things like music. You could have a guided meditation. There are so many good apps out there. You've got apps like Headspace, Calm, and obviously I'm going to talk about Sport Yogi being one of the apps for athletes. But you can use so many different ways of keeping yourself in the present moment. So if you're listening to something like music, then you're listening along to the music, just listening out to the beat, the instruments, whatever it is. That's allowing you to stay present and being aware of what's going on. For others, it might be that you're just staying in a quiet room, in a quiet place, and you're just no distractions around. And I would recommend starting there because you want to make sure that you don't really have too much to move your attention, so that there will be these moments of frustration and disappointment, and you're trying to minimize those to begin with, so that you do start to understand what it feels like to focus on that object, that sensation, that breath that you're taking. So try find a quiet room, a quiet place, somewhere that's potentially not too bright. You can have the eyes open, eyes closed, but ultimately pick an object, that sensation, that breath that you are going to focus on, and start at simply 1 minute. Make sure you're nice and comfortable as well. So whether that's sitting down or sitting in a chair, lying down, you can use plenty of cushions, but you want to make sure that your body isn't irritating you to begin with. And then from there, that's just your starting point, and you can start to explore it in a much bigger way. So hopefully this podcast has helped you out and given you some sort of insight in how mindfulness can help you as an athlete. I know for sure that it has helped me, and it's something that I am big on teaching athletes. So if you would like to learn more, then you can reach out to me. You can find me on Instagram at Lewis Hatchett. You can head over to lewishatchett.com. You can find the podcast there at lewishatchett.com/podcast. You can also head over to Instagram to find Sport Yogi, where you can see more about mindfulness for athletes, for sport. There's movement, there's stretches, there's strengthening, and there's also breath work. So breath control, using your breathing to become a better athlete. The idea is that you're going to breathe, think, and move better as an athlete. So you can go over to Sport Yogi on Instagram at Sport Yogi. There's the YouTube channel. Just type in Sport Yogi on YouTube, or head over to sportyogi.com, where you can also download the app from sportyogi.com, or on iOS on the App Store, or on the Google Play Store on Android. Anyway, thank you so much for listening to this podcast, and I will see you guys next time.